So far, I've done two movie reviews, so to speak, of what were the best and not so best movies of two people. That was Steven Seagal and Chuck Norris. I have maybe a couple more to do, but I'm going to begin with Bruce Lee, and then another one, maybe. What were the best and the worst movies of Bruce Lee? Let me first qualify this video and my next several statements to say this. Understand something, overstand, comprehend something that was very, very unique about Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee did not just make a martial arts action film when he did his movies. They were not just simply martial arts action films, as were many movies that were done back in the late 60s, early 70s, and beyond. In other words, it was not just simply a matter of choreographing movements, good guy versus bad guy type of situation, or bad guy versus bad guy. It was a pioneer actually expressing his martial arts style through application in motion picture. That's what Bruce Lee did. Bruce Lee was a martial scientist, so to speak. Bruce Lee expressed an art that he created for himself as it relates to fighting, real fighting, not sport fighting. So it wasn't just kicking and punching and throwing and sweeping in his films. If you watch his movies, especially when he got to the end of his movie career before he passed away, unfortunately, you saw the science of his art. Chinese Connection, Fist of Fury, Return of the Dragon or Way of the Dragon. Those were three of his earlier films. Now, what you saw in Bruce Lee during those times was a very robust, very energetic martial arts master who was getting started in films. Understand this, Bruce Lee was already an actor as a child, and he had done several movies, 20 or more, in China before he came to America. So he already had acting under his belt. Now, by him studying martial arts and training in martial arts, he began on a self-exploration of the science of fighting. And that is what you saw in his films, especially when he got towards the last couple movies that he did. So you had Fist of Fury, which was also called Big Boss. You had Chinese Connection, which was also called Fist of Fury. You have Return of the Dragon, which was also called Way of the Dragon. Now let's push those over to the side. Then you had his cream de la cream, which was Enter the Dragon. That was his baby. Bruce Lee was in the greatest physical condition of his life at his age, 32 years old, when he did that film. You can tell by his skill at that age. You could tell by his finesse. You could tell by his movements. You could tell by his agility, his uncanny precision in Enter the Dragon. You could tell by his musculature. How many martial artists did you know during that time that was enacting, that was built like Bruce Lee? Even when you see in Enter the Dragon, Bolo Yeung, whose real name is Yang Zi, when you saw Bolo was a big muscular guy. No definition. Bruce Lee had the definition. Even Jim Kelly did not compare to Bruce Lee as far as his physique was concerned. Nor was John Saxon, nowhere near him. So he was the go-to guy. He was the GOAT. And then when he did Game of Death, which he didn't survive to complete, here we go with the best of and the not so best of. Out of the 5 movies that he did, first of all, we must understand again that he didn't complete Game of Death by virtue of what he did in the film and the pieces that they could put back together after he passed away, the scenes that were found later that they put together. Enter the Dragon and Game of Death were the very best films out of all of Bruce Lee's films. Chinese Connection, Fist of Fury, Return of the Dragon were very, very good films. But the very best film out of all of those films, notwithstanding the short filming of Game of Death, Enter the Dragon was the very best film. As a matter of fact, it was recorded as having the greatest fight scene of any action film, not just martial arts, any action film of all time. And Enter the Dragon grossed more than any other action film during that time. Enter the Dragon, a Chinese man, yes, it grossed more than any other film during that time. Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. Hooray. So now, there is no bad movie. When we look at the time that Bruce Lee was developing as a martial artist and who he was and what he was doing in his films, he was not just making an entertainment piece for you to watch. He was expressing his art of Jeet Kune Do, and he did it to its maximum in Enter the Dragon. So again, he had no bad movies. He had no flops. All of his movies were box office hits. Fist of Fury, Chinese Connection, Return of the Dragon, then came Enter the Dragon, but unfortunately he did not survive. He didn't live long enough to see the results, but that was his baby. And Game of Death was another great film. Had he lived to complete it, it would have been greater. So, I just wanted to say that. Let me know what you think, and I'll be awaiting your response. Take care.